So here are the questions about algebra. First question, x over 5 equals minus 6. Well, all we need to do there is multiply the top and bottom of that by 5 to get x equals minus 30. Second one says factorize fully 4t minus 20. So we need to think of something that 4t and the 20 can be divided by. So the biggest thing that goes into both of those, and then that's something that we're going to take outside the bracket. So the biggest thing that they can both be divided by is 4. And then we need to think, what do I need to multiply by to get the thing we started with? So for example, what do I need to multiply 4 by to get the 4t? Well, I need to multiply it by t, so t goes in the brackets. And then what do I need to multiply the 4 by to get the minus 20? And I need to multiply it by minus 5, so minus 5 goes in the brackets. So 4t minus 20 factorized is 4 brackets t minus 5. And you can check that works by multiplying the brackets out again and seeing that you get back to what you started with. Okay, question C. Expand and simplify 3 brackets 2m minus 4, close brackets, plus 5 brackets m plus 2, close brackets. Well, 3 times that bracket means 3 times everything in the bracket, so 3 times 2m gives you 6m, and then 3 times minus 4 gives you minus 12, and then we've got plus 5 times everything in this bracket, so 5 times m gives you 5m, and 5 times 2 gives you 10. So together we've got 6m minus 12 plus 5m plus 10, and some of those things go together. We've got a 6m plus a 5m makes 11m, and then we've got a minus 12, remember the minus belongs to the thing that follows, plus 10, and together they make minus 2. So it's 11m minus 2. Next question, simplify fully that expression. Doesn't matter what the order is, so we could rewrite that as 4 times 2, from the 4 here and the 2 here, times g cubed, from the g here and the g cubed here, times k squared times k to the 3, from the k squared here and the k to the 3 there. 4 times 2 gives you 8, g times g cubed gives you g to the power of 4, and k squared times k to the power of 3 gives you k to the power of 5. Remember the rule about adding the powers. So the answer is 8g to the 4 k to the 5. Question E, factorize 10q squared minus 15qr. So we need to think of the biggest thing possible that we can divide both of those terms by in that expression. Well, 10 and 15 can certainly both be divided by 5, so it's going to have a 5 in it. But then we've got q squared here and q here, so we can also divide everything by q. By 5 times q, 5q. So we put 5q outside the brackets, and then we think, what do I need to multiply 5q by inside the brackets to get what I started with? So 5q times what will give me 10q squared, and that's 2q. And then 5q times what will give me the minus 15qr, and that will be minus 5r. So factorized, it's 5q brackets 2q minus 3r. Next one, addition pyramid. Well, you can see in this pyramid everything is the sum of the 2 bricks below, so 2 plus 4 makes 6, for example. So if we were to do that, x brackets x minus 4 plus 4x gives us what's in the brick above. So x times x minus 4 plus 4x. Multiplying those brackets out, we get x squared minus 4x plus the 4x that was already there. So we've got a minus and plus 4x that cancel each other out. So those two just add up to x squared. And there it is, x squared. Meanwhile, this one here, that's 4x plus 6x minus x squared. And together that makes 10x minus x squared, because the 4x and the 6x make 10x, and then the minus x squared. So the brick above is 10x minus x squared. Now the brick above that, which we've been told is kx, if we work it out from the bricks below, it's x squared plus 10 minus x squared. Sorry, x squared plus 10x, I should say, minus x squared. So x squared plus 10x minus x squared. The plus and minus x squared cancel out, leaving us just with the 10x. So the brick at the top is 10x. So in other words, k is 10. Okay, next question. Make y the subject of the formula 3y minus p equals h brackets 2 plus y. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is multiply the bracket. So that h times 2 plus y becomes 2h plus hy, h times everything in the brackets. Then what I really want is the y on one side and everything else on the other side, so that I can end up with y equals something. So at the moment I've got 3y minus p, so I'm going to add the p to both sides to get rid of it there. But then I've got to add p to the other side, so I've got a plus p over there. So I've got 3y equals 2h plus hy plus p. So I've got an hy there. I've got a thing with y in it that I really want to be on the other side, because I want all the y things to be on the same side. So I'm going to take away this hy so that it will disappear in the next line. But then on the other side, I need to take away hy as well for it to balance. So over here I've got minus hy. So 3y minus hy equals 2h plus p after I've taken away hy from both sides. Now that left-hand side can factorise, because both of those things have got y in them. So I can take y outside the brackets and factorise it with y as a factor. And then I've got to think, what have I got to multiply y by inside the brackets to get the thing I started with? So 3 times what will give me 3y? The answer's... y times what will give me 3y? The answer is 3. Y times 3 gives 3y. And then y times what will give minus hy? And the answer is minus h. So minus h goes in the bracket. So factorised, that's 3 brackets, y brackets 3 minus h equals 2h plus p. Okay, so y times that equals that. If I divide by that thing that's in the brackets, I can get the y on its own. So dividing everything by the thing that's in the brackets, I just get the y on its own, and y equals the thing I had before, 2h plus p, divided by the bracket, 3 minus h. Next question is just putting numbers into a formula, so I won't say anything about that, except here's the... And if you've got it wrong, you've probably done something wrong with minuses, so you can just pause this and check what you did. Right, next question. First one, expand. So w times everything that's in the brackets. W times w gives w squared. W times minus 4 equals minus. So it's w squared minus 4w. Next one, factorise. We've got to think of the biggest thing that goes into both 8t and 24, and that'll go outside the brackets. So that biggest thing is 8. You can divide both of those by 8. So 8 times t will give us the 8t, and 8 times 3 will give us the 24. Question C, expand and simplify. Now, these ones with two brackets, you've got to remember that it's everything in the first bracket times everything in the second. So y times y is giving me y squared. 7 times y is giving me 7y. The other y times the minus 2 is giving me minus 2y. And finally, 7 times minus 2 is giving me minus 14. So the whole thing comes to y squared plus 7y minus 2y minus 14. But the 7y and the minus 2y can go together to make 5y. So the final simplified answer is y squared plus 5y minus 14. Next question, solve 4x plus 3 equals 17. So first thing, multiply the brackets out to get 4x plus 12 equals 17. Then I'm taking away 12 from both sides to get 4x equals 5. Divide everything by 4 to get x equals 1.25. Next one is an inequality. So you can do almost the same with these as you can with an equation. It's just telling you that something is more than or less than rather than equal to. So in this one, 2n minus 1 is more than 5. Just like I would with an equation, I can add 1 to both sides to find out that 2n is more than 6. And then I can divide both sides by 2 to get n is more than 3. So the solution to the inequality is that n is anything more than 3. And you can treat them almost the same as you can with equations, the only difference being that you can't multiply or divide by a minus number. Right, make h the subject of. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is multiply out the brackets. So 2 times h gives me 2h, 2 times minus y gives me minus 2y. So that becomes 2h minus 2y equals 5y plus 3. Now, I'm making h the subject, so I'd like all the h's on the same side, because I'd like the final answer to be h equals something. So, at the moment I've got this minus 2y, so I'm going to get rid of it by adding 2y, and then it will disappear. But then I've got to remember to add 2y to the other side, so the 5y becomes 7y, because I've added 2y to both sides. So 2 times h is 7y plus 3. I don't want to know what 2 times h is, I just want to know what h is on its own. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and there's the final answer. H equals 7y plus 3, all divided by 2. Right, the next one is just one of those putting numbers into a formula and hoping you don't trip up on minuses. So there's the answer, and if you didn't get it right, you can pause that. Okay, next one. 7x equals 15 minus 3x. So I'm going to add 3x to both sides so that I get 10x equals 15. And that's made it simpler because I've now only got one term with x in. I don't want to know what 10x's are, I want to know what a single x is, so I'm going to divide everything by 10. So x, which is already written there for you, equals 1.5. Okay, the next question. 2x plus 16 plus 4x minus 5 simplifies to something, brackets x plus something. Work out what those something, a and b, are. So we're going to take this thing that we've got here and try and write it in this form. So I'll start off by multiplying it. So 2 times everything in the brackets x plus 16 gives you 2x plus 32. 4 times everything in the brackets x minus 5 gives you 4x minus 20. So we've got 2x plus 32 plus 4x minus 20. The 2x and the 4x go together to make 6x. The 32 and the minus 20 go together to make 12. So we've got 6x minus 12. Now that can be factorized because both of those things can be divided by 6. So we take 6 outside the brackets and we say 6 times the x will give us the 6x, and 6 times 2 will give us 12. So factorized, that's 6 brackets x plus 2. Now we had to write it in the form something brackets x plus something. So those two values, a and b, are the 6 and the 2. Okay, the next one is one of those ones where you've got numbers that multiplied together and values, algebraic values multiplied. So once again, I can write all of these in a different order because it doesn't matter when you multiply things what the order is. So 2 times 4 from the 2 here and the 4 here. The x cubed here and the x here can be written together, so x cubed times x. And then the y squared here and the y to the power of 5 can be written together, so that's y squared times y to the 5 here. So 2 times 4 is 8. X cubed times x is x to the power of 4, and y squared times y to the power of 5 is y to the power of 7. Remember the rule about adding the powers, so the final simplified answer is 8 x to the 4 y to the 7. Next one is a factorization. Got to think of the biggest thing we can that both of those terms can be divided by. So you can divide 20 and 8 both by 4. And you've got a y squared and a y in both of them, or you've got y's in each of them, in other words, so you can divide both of them by y. So by 4 times y. So I'll take 4y outside the bracket, and then I'm saying 4y times what will give me 20y squared. Well, 4 times 5 will give the 20, and y times y will give the y squared. So 5y inside the bracket, and then 4y times what will give me minus xy. Well, I need a 2 to make it up to 8. So I should have said 4y times what will give us minus 8xy. So 4y times 2x will give us 8xy, and then don't forget it's minus as well. So 4y times minus 2xy is giving us the minus 8xy. Okay, the next one, make x the subject. Well, at the moment x is dividing by r, so the fact that we're dividing something by r is getting in the way. So the first thing I'm going to do is multiply everything by r. So w times r is wr, y times r is yr, and then x divided by r times r makes it just the x on its own. So we multiplied everything by r just to get rid of that fraction, and we want the x's all together on one side, and we want everything else on the other side because we're making x the subject. So in other words, we want the answer to be x equals something. So at the moment we've got y r plus x equals wr, so we need to take away the yr to get the x on its own. So wr minus yr equals x. So that on its own is good enough as the answer, x equals wr minus yr, but I've decided to factorize it because I've noticed that there's an r in both of those, so I've factorized it as r times w minus y. Okay, another one with just putting values into a form. So here's the answer, and if you did get that wrong, pause the film, check it. Okay, rearrange y equals 3x plus 2 to make x the subject. So we want it to be x equals something. So to try and get the x on its own, first of all, I've taken away 2 from both sides to get the 3x bit on its own, so 3x equals y minus 2. But I don't want to know what 3x is, I just want to know what x is on its own. So I'll divide everything by 3, so x is y minus 2 divided by 3. So that's our final answer, x equals y minus 2 divided by 3. Okay, expand m brackets m plus 4, so just m times everything in the brackets. M times m is m squared, m times 4 is 4m. Next one, factorise, so think of the biggest thing you can that everything there can be divided by. Well, 12 and 6 certainly both divide by 6, and then we've got y's in both of those, so we can divide everything by y as well. So 6 times y goes outside the brackets, and then inside the brackets, what do I need to multiply the 6y by to get the terms I started with? So 6y times 2xy will give me 12xy squared, and 6y times minus 1 will give me minus 6y. Okay, next one, another put the numbers in the formula. There's the answer. Check it through. If you got it wrong, pause the film. Next one, solve 12 minus x all divided by 3 equals 5. Well, the first thing I'm going to want to do with that is get rid of the fraction by multiplying everything by 3. So 12 minus x equals 15. I'm then going to add x to both sides to get rid of the minus x. So from here to here, I've added x to make minus x disappear. But then on the other side, I've got nothing there to start with, but I've added x to both sides. So I've got 15 plus x. I'm trying to get the x on its own, so I'll take away the 15, but then I've got to take away 15 on the other side. So the 15 disappears here because I've taken it away, and then over here, 12 take away 15 is minus 3. So x is minus 3. Question B. Rearrange the formula to make t the subject. So I'm starting with s equals 3t plus 4. I'm trying to get the t on its own, so I've taken away 4 from both sides. S minus 4 equals the 3t on its own. But I don't want to know what 3t is, I just want to know what a single t is, so I've divided everything by 3 both sides, so that s minus 4 divided by 3 is t. So that's the answer to that one. Question 9. N is an integer. An integer is a whole number. List the values of n such that minus 12 is less than 3n, which is less than or equal to, that one with a double line means less than or equal to, 6. Well, I don't want to know about 3n, I want to know about n. So I'm going to divide everything by minus 4 equals n. Sorry, minus 4 is less than n, which is less than or equal to 2. So that means that if n can be any whole number, any integer in that range, n can be minus 3 or minus 2 or minus 1 or 0 or 1 or 2. It's allowed to be 2 because this sign says less than or equal to, but it's not allowed to be minus 4 because we don't have an or equal to on this sign here. Mr. and Mrs. Bell have twin daughters and a son. Mrs. Bell is 4 years older than Mr. Bell. Mrs. Bell is 3 times older than their twin daughters. Their twin daughters are 7 years older than the son. The sum of the 5 ages is 150. Let x be the age of the twin daughters. Okay, so the twin daughters are x, so their ages are x plus x. Mrs. Bell is 3 times older than that, so her age is 3x. Mr. Bell is 4 years older than Mrs. Bell, so his age is 3x plus 4. And then finally, The twin daughters are 7 years older than the son, so the son is 7 years younger than the twin daughters, so his age is x minus 7. So all of this information can help us to set up an equation in x. X plus 3x plus 3x plus 4 plus x minus 7 equals 150, because it says the sum of the 5 ages is 150. They add up to 150. Well, if we tidy this up a bit, we get 9x minus 3. So 9x minus 3 is 150. So therefore 9x is 153, adding 3 to both sides, and divide everything by 9. X equals 17. So in other words, the age of the twin daughters is 17. Nothing difficult about the algebra there. The difficulty is making sense of all of the information in the question and formulating the problem. Next question, factorise 9m minus k squared. Okay, this isn't like other factorisation ones you've seen. There's a special trick to it. If you think about 3m minus k times 3m plus k, 3m times 3m is 9m squared, 3m times k is minus 3mk, and minus k times 3m is minus 3mk, and 3m times k is plus 3mk, and then minus k times k is minus k squared. And what you get is those middle two cancelling each other out, because they're plus and minus the same thing. So you get 9m squared minus k squared, which was the original thing. So 9m squared minus k squared factorises to 3m minus k times 3m plus k. The trick to it is that 3m is the square root of 9m squared, because 3m times 3m gives you 9m squared. K is the square root of k squared, because k times k gives you k squared. So when you've got an expression that is something that you can find the square root of minus something else you can find the square root of, it's always the square root minus the other square root in one bracket, and the square root plus the other square root in the other bracket. It's quite it's a thing you have to sort of know the trick to rather than figure it out in the exam, but if you can remember that trick, it might earn you 1 or 2 extra points, but it's not worth worrying too much about. So moving on, simplify fully. Okay, well, the 24 divided by 8 simplifies to 3. The x to the power of 8 divided by x to the power of 4 simplifies to x to the power of 4, because the rule is subtract the powers when you're dividing. And y to the power of 9 divided by y to the power of 3 is y to the power of 6, again because 9 minus 3 is 6 and the rule is subtract the powers. So that simplifies to 3 x to the 4 y to the 6. Okay, this next one really belongs to the topic of quadratics, but when you've got a square term in there, it's usually a bracket times another bracket, and you just need to think of different ways you could get 3n squared. Well, you can only get it from a 3n times an n, so a 3n and an n have got to go in the brackets, and then you've got to think of different ways you could get a 4. Well, you could get it from 2 times 2, or you could get it from 4 times 1. But the only thing where the brackets work together to give you the minus 7 in the middle is if the 4's there and the 1's there. So you get 4 times n giving you 4n, 3n times 1 giving you 3n, and together that makes 7n. It involves a little bit of playing about with different combinations to get the one that works, though. And then the next one, hence or otherwise, write 374 as the product of its prime factors. Well, you might notice that 374 is a bit like the thing in the last question. 3 times something plus 7 times something plus 4. So if we think of n as being 10, here it comes in a minute, yeah. So if n is 10, then that would be 3 times 10 squared plus 7 times 10 plus 4, which is 374. So 374 can be written as 3 times 10 squared plus 7 times 10 plus 4, which is like that. And then we saw in the last question that that could be written as 3n plus 4 times n plus 1. So in other words, if n is 10 here and 10 here, we get 34 times 11. So 374 is the same as 34 times 11, which, if you break that down further into prime numbers, 34 is 2 times 17, so 374 is 2 times 11 times 17. And that's breaking it down to its prime factors, because 2, 11 and 17 are prime numbers, so you can't break the number down any further. Now, a question like that, on the paper you're doing, only a couple of marks, not the biggest thing you want to worry about. Concentrate on getting the routine things right, because that's where the easier marks are. Questions like this are just sort of one-off type things where you need to spot something and you might not always spot it. Expand w times w plus 6, w squared plus 6w. Factorize 8y plus 20. So everything there divides by 4, so you can 4 outside the brackets. 4 times 2y gives you 8y, 4 times 5 gives you 20, so it's 4 times 2y plus 5. Solve. 3x minus 2 equals 5x plus 8. 2 is multiply out the brackets, so 3 times x gives me 3x, 3 times minus 2 gives me minus 6. I'm then taking away 3x from both sides, so minus 6 equals 2x plus 8. I want the x's on their own, so I'm going to take away the 8. So take away the 8 and minus 14 equals 2x. But I just want to know what x is on its own, so I'm going to divide by 2 and x equals minus 7. So x equals minus 7 is the answer. Right, another one with inequalities. So minus 1 is less than or equal to n plus 3, which is less than or equal to 5. Sorry, which is less than 5 but not equal to 5. I don't want to know about n plus 3, I want to know about n. So I'm going to take away 3 from everything. So minus 4 is less than or equal to n, which is less than 5. So n is allowed to equal minus 4, but it's not allowed to equal 5. So n can be anything from minus 4 up to plus 4, except it's got to be a whole number, an integer in other words. Grace wants to hire a taxi. Okay, so company A, Ace Taxis, it costs £2.20 as soon as you get in, plus £1.60 for each kilometre. So if the number of kilometres is X, as it says here, then the price you pay is £2.20 plus 1.6 times X, £1.60 for each kilometre. So that's what Ace costs, 2.2 plus 1.6x. Meanwhile, B, best cars, fixed charge of 4 plus £1.40 for each kilometre. So their cost is 4 plus 1.4x. Now, it says that Grace wants to go home from the railway station, and the cost of this journey is the same, whether it's Ace or Best Cars. And so let's set that up as an equation. 2.2 plus 1.6x for Ace equals 4 plus 1.4x for Best. So those two things are equal. So if I take away 1.4x from both sides, take away 2.2 from both sides, multiply both sides by 10, I can figure out what x is. And it comes out to be x is 9, which means that her distance home to the railway station is 9 kilometres. So, for example, with Best, if her distance to the railway station is 9 kilometres, then x is 9. So she's paying £4 as soon as she gets in, plus 1.4 times 9, £1.40 for each of 9 kilometres, and that comes to £16.60. And if you work it out for ACE taxes, it should also be £16.60 because we just worked all of this out on the basis that they cost the same. So she's paying £16.60 for her journey at the moment. Now the new car, the new cab company, has no fixed charge plus £1.70 per kilometre. So Cosy Cabs will cost her just 9 times £1.70, 9 kilometres at £1.70 each, and that comes to £15.30. So Cosy Cabs is cheaper, the new company is cheaper. So we've done everything they've asked us to do in this equation. We've set up and solved an equation for x being the number of kilometres, and we've decided whether it's cheaper for Grace to hire a taxi from Cosy Cabs. We've decided that it is cheaper because it's only £15.30 compared to £16.60. Here we go. Make y the subject of 2 plus 3y divided by y minus 5. Make y the subject of x equals 2 plus 3y divided by y minus 5. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is multiply. So multiplying by the bracket, not the bracket, the fraction I should say, multiplying by the bottom of the fraction. So if I multiply the right hand side by y minus 5, I'm left with just the top. But then I need to do the same the other side, so x times y minus 5. So x times y minus 5 equals 2 plus 3x. Multiplying the bracket out, x times y is xy, x times minus 5 is minus 5x. So xy minus 5x equals 2 plus 3y. I'm trying to make y the subject, so I want all the things with y on the same side. So at the moment I've got xy minus 5x, so I'd like to get rid of the thing that doesn't have y in it. I'd like to get rid of the minus 5x, so I'll add 5x to both sides to do that. But then if I'm adding 5x here to make the minus 5x disappear, I need to add 5x over here. So we've got an extra 5x over here now. So xy equals 2 plus 3y plus 5x. Now I'd like that 3y to be with the other y's on the left hand side, so I'm going to take away the 3y from here and take away 3y from the other side, so that xy minus 3y equals 2 plus 5x. Now this xy minus 3y, you can factorise y out of it. You can say both of those things divide by y, so I can take a y outside the bracket, and then inside the bracket, y times the x will give me x times y times the minus 3 will give me the minus 3. So that's the same as y times brackets x minus 3 equals 2 plus 5x. So to find out what the y is on its own, I just need to divide everything by this bracket x minus 3. So y equals 2 plus 5x divided by the x minus 3. So that's the final answer. And that's the end of those.